the challenge of the future. One of our most... Thank you, A.B. for this campaign.
Years old. Listen now to what he's done.
With his partner, Homer Tompkins, Mike Powers has a corporation which makes fire.
Well, basically, we're going to use the 4 wide receivers, and we'll probably use them if they're healthy and all.
I do know that the black vote can have a great impact on which way the election goes, but I have found a great deal of apathy, or shall I say a lack of enthusiasm about the entire presidential election this year, to the point where many people are saying that they aren't going to vote, even those who have fought long and hard to get the right to vote.
About 24 protesters greeted the United Fund backers who came to launch the campaign for $9,409,916. But those few who protested the collection tactics of the fund were ignored at the box luncheon inside the auditorium as the good news of the over 336,000 persons benefiting from the campaign was lauded. Avery Mays introduced scores of people who have volunteered to do the work of raising the money that will support such agencies as the Dallas Association for Retarded Children, Big Brothers, and the Dallas Services for the Blind. Channel 8's Bob Gooding and 4's Judy Jordan also spread the good news of United Fund success stories, and H.D. Shoddy, General Campaign Chairman, lit the giant symbol of fair share giving. Outside, they're protesting extortion. Inside, they praised volunteerism. It's all in how you interpret the words fair share. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judy Hanna.
Very few people are unaware that for more than 15 years there has now been an open hotline between the Soviet Union and the United States in terms of weather reports. Not a hotline between Moscow and Washington in terms of the Kremlin and the White House. There has been an open hotline that is used by both the Strategic Air Command and the Soviet equivalent, where the pictures and information from our satellites and weather stations and from theirs are fed into a single pool, and this information is made available to both. This has been going on for years.
I believe everybody will be capable of playing in the open. We have some bruises that came out of the Oakland game. I think that Parks is probably the one that will be the most bruised coming into the game. However, I think he'll be ready. I think that Jethro Pugh is bruised up some on his shoulder, and he'll have some handicap. But I think they'll all be ready. When the season opens, usually the players will come out and play.
Are you leaning toward the possibility of activating Dan Reeves for Sunday's game?
Well, this is a possibility in our thinking right now. We feel like that Dan is very capable. He knows our system exceptionally well. I feel that Con Cannon at this point has not really come as far yet as he will come, and he may need some time. This decision will be made later in the week as to what we plan to do.
What are your thoughts on Philadelphia as a team?
Well, Philadelphia worries us some in that they finished so strong defensively last year. They're a very complicated defensive team, and they use many, many different sets, both in the line and in the secondary. They're a zone team, basically, and they'll tend to make you look kind of bad in the game. So hopefully that we'll be able to handle their defense and control their offensive team.
Well, I think I'll have quite a bit to say in who's coming and who's not coming, but I think that both organizations are going to have quite a bit to say, too.
Do you have any idea at this point, before you go to Flint, who you'll have in Fort Worth?
No, not really. I could probably name some players that will be here from the St. Louis organization, only because I was there for 10 days at their rookie camp and have had an opportunity to see just how good some of them are. And I haven't been to Detroit's camp yet, so I don't really know what to expect there. But there's some good ones coming out of the St. Louis camp, and hopefully they'll be the same out of Detroit.
Are you apprehensive at all because of the special arrangement as to what might happen during the season?
No, I think that once you get a team together, they have, whether they belong to St. Louis or Detroit, they're still fighting for their own common cause. And our players are going to be young enough that they can just meld into a team in Fort Worth.
Sure. I'm just hoping I don't hit the guy on the top of the head again.
Does that cause you, that concern, to maybe want to hold back a little bit? Or are you going to just have to go in and start wailing away?
Well, I don't think I can fight if I hold anything back. That's just not my style, and I don't... Well, I just can't fight if I hold back. So it's made me pinpoint my punches a little bit more, especially my left hand. I don't throw my right that much anyway. But it's just made me watch what I'm throwing a little bit more.
Starting this morning, all passengers will have any personal baggage checked prior to the time they're allowed on the aircraft. American officials say the reasons are twofold. First, to try and eliminate some of the skyjackings, and secondly, to protect the passengers. American has set up a table just inside the boarding area to check the baggage. Then they place a tag across the lock, which is inspected prior to the actual boarding of the aircraft. The average passenger, however, doesn't seem to object to the inspection. Does it offend you to have your luggage searched like this?
No, it doesn't.
Why?
Because it's good for security because of the hijacking we've been having lately.
Does it offend you to be searched like this?
No,
Why?
I have nothing to hide.
All in all, the passenger seems to take it in the spirit in which it was intended, that as a deterrent for the continuing skyjackings across our nation's skies. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move at Love Field.
We studied it, we reviewed it, and if there had been any question, well, we'd certainly supply them that information in advance if they, saw fit to do so. But I can't find any way in the contract that takes away any of the control of the of the Fort Worth Zoo than we now control.
The assignment sounded like a reporter's dream. Cover a cooking show. So off we trudged to the Dallas Marriott to put our best stomach forward. This was no ordinary cooking show. Oh no, this was the for men only cooking show. A series of lessons for aspiring chefs sponsored by the National Home Fashions League. 189 would-be gastronomes gathered at the feet of Rudy Standish, billed as the omelet king of the world, to pick up tidbits from this champion omelet maker. How many different types of omelets do you make?
About 125.
What's the worst omelet you ever made?
Well, I don't think you should ask that. I think the important thing that they're all good omelets, but it just may not be your cup of tea.
Well, what's the worst omelet you ever ate?
Well, it was a vegetable omelet, and I think it was Chinese sprouts. But it was my fault it was the worst omelet because I didn't saute them first. I just didn't prepare them properly, and it did not satisfy me.
After Rudy's lessons, it was eats on the house. So all present had a dab of omelet, and another dab of omelet, and another round, and another round. And sometimes these dream assignments aren't all that they're cracked up to be. Arch Campbell, News 8 on the Move, at the all-male cooking show.
Well, you've got to look at the type of business, and you will find that in the service type of industries, the ma and pa type of industries, the fatality rate is high. In some areas of the country, it will run as high as 50%.
Would this be the franchise business?
Well, that's included in a great deal of it, yes. And we know that this is a very difficult area. But that does not preclude us from assisting a small businessman that wants to get into that, because a guy works a little harder, has got a better idea of a business, makes a go of it, and we see it all the time, and we want to give him a chance.
Fort Worth schools have been violence-free so far this school year, but the classroom teachers here aren't taking anything for granted. A task force of teachers and administrators has spent a year making up new policies to deal with discipline problems. Classroom teachers generally want a bigger role in disciplining students. The policy changes would give teachers more authority in suspending students and more protection from the abuse of irate parents. The move to tighten discipline was prompted in part by past violence against teachers themselves.
We decided we'd try to head off the problem with violence among the students or threats to teachers, either verbal or with weapons. We have not had any problems in our system this year, and with this policy, we hope we won't.
I personally feel that we can propose a tax rate for the city of Fort Worth next year at $1.69, the same as it was last year.
Do you have any idea how much money would be forthcoming as revenue sharing for the city of Fort Worth?
Well, it depends on what happens in the conference committee. The House bill indicated that Fort Worth's share of revenue sharing would be about $8 million. The Senate version is about $5 million.
organizing a meeting tonight at 7 o'clock at Green Oaks, and we will. And so we.
Karen Godek led the Pledge of Allegiance this morning, doing ceremonies awarding Skylines Aeronautics Cluster with a federal aviation license to teach airframe technology. But Karen has another allegiance. She wants to be an astronaut. With parents and school officials present, she received a certificate from the vets of foreign wars on behalf of the school and her aeronautics classmates. Karen, a junior, is the only female student in the school's advanced aviation cluster. Karen said that she has wanted to be an astronaut since she was a little girl and used to watch space launches on television. She says her male classmates don't think aeronautics is the place for women.
Sometimes they think I can't do it. I can, but they get mad sometimes because I'm a little better than them at some things.
For Channel 8 News, this is June Gray.
When Mrs. Ruby Wagner retired back in 1964, she traded her full-time job for a full-time hobby. Mrs. Wagner spends her days working in an old-fashioned art that's enjoying a revival, the art of quilting.
Well, I started when I was about 16 or 17 years old, and
I quilted. Of course, you don't quilt steady, but I quilted off and on with my neighbors and friends and for my family. It's like an artist creating a picture. And that's what you do in quilting. You see this here, you can see better that this here is just, it looks like a flower.
A quilt's basic construction is pretty simple. There's a bottom lining, stuffing, usually made out of cotton, top lining, and the quilt top. And here's where the simplicity stops. The quilt top has to be pieced together, then stretched on one of these old-fashioned frames and carefully stitched with intricate designs. Working night and day, Mrs. Wagner turns out only about a quilt a month, which represents some 160 hours or more of work. Quilting has a folklore all its own, especially in the top designs, most of them passed down over the years from generation to generation.
Right now, I'm working on one that is called the Flower Garden, and this is the Drunkard's Patch, this is the Nine Patch, and this is the Star Quilt, and then this is also the Snowflower in a cross stitch.
Quilting is as old as the 13 colonies. The necessity of making cover turned into a social function, with the community women forming quilting bees, a chance to pool together their energy and to get together for a listen to the latest gossip. A quilt like this one's been passed down from generation to generation. Now, maybe you're wondering why sleep under a quilt when an electric blanket is probably cheaper and warmer. Well, maybe it's because a quilt is something essentially human, made by humans for other humans to enjoy. And when you put it in that context, I'll choose Grandma's quilt over one of those newfangled electric blankets any night. Arch Campbell, News 8 on the Move, Dallas.
As far as this commissioner's court's concerned, our little ones, our juvenile department, they hold a high priority. They cannot help themselves, and so we put set a priority higher than inmates of the county jail.
Well, no, they were very fortunate. I'd say due to the fact that they probably, the trees broke their fall is the only thing that I can see at this time that might have saved them from getting more seriously injured. Of course, they are probably seriously injured, but kept them from being fatal injuries.
Captain, you were the first man on the scene.
Yes,
it isn't often you get a crash of this magnitude without a fire.
This is my first at Redbird Airport of this seriousness, and I think we were lucky that we didn't have the fire.
I understand that one man was thrown out on the other side of the hedgerow.
Yes, sir, he was.
But one man was still walking around and able to talk, apparently.
Apparently he was trying to find help. He walked away from here, and he was apparently looking for some help when he went away. But he came back, and he wasn't hurt too seriously, but he went on to the hospital.
I understand there was some damage to the aircraft before it came to the Redbird area. Is that correct?
This is correct. As long as best we can figure out, he had some obstruction around the Lancaster airport and knocked off part of his wing tip or part of the wing landing gear, and we aren't just exactly sure what it was.
Well, I feel like the old people are very, very interested in this type of a program. Usually have always been. And now since the program is moving on out into the fields where we would like to see it, they're going to enjoy it more so. Because it's going to bridge between loneliness and happiness.
With the Senate passage of the bill, of course, it goes to the conference committee with the House. And my guess is the conferees will probably meet next week, and I hope we can get early action on it.
Do you feel there's any chance that it won't pass?
Oh, no, we'll get a bill of some kind because the House has already passed one, the Senate's already passed one. The Senate bill will give us more money, will give us a substantially greater amount of money, so we hope the Senate version is the one that prevails.
After working as a used car salesman for a period, he borrowed enough money to start a flight service. After a short time, he petitioned the district judge to allow him to claim his company was bankrupt. The bankruptcy request was granted, and his business creditors were left holding the bag. On a separate date, he also claimed bankruptcy in his personal affairs, leaving another group of creditors holding the bag.
I think that he's feeling probably a little guilt, and he's probably feeling the fact that he's probably questioning himself for the first time in front of the mirror on the wall. What have I done? And mirror probably responded nothing. So I think that he's probably now saying that I want to do something. I want to get a newspaper and say that I'm for the consumer. So I'm calling special session, and probably he'll be sorry afterwards, but he's already done it.
Our series of reports last week on housing in Dallas County, particularly FHA 235 subsidized housing, brought a lot of letters. Viewers writing in their complaints. They say that some of their houses are having material failures. For instance, this house at 3626 Harlingen in far west Dallas. The slab has failed. It is cracked inside, and the government is spending almost $3,000 to repair it. Yes, it is a foreclosure. It was abandoned. But you do have recourse if you have a house of this type, or if you have structural failures. First of all, any reputable builder will give you a 1-year warranty on construction. Then the government will back up that warranty again. It's called the 518 program. If you bought your house new, it can be repaired at government expense under the 518 program. If your house was used, the 518B program takes over. Yes, the government will help you. All you have to do is call the complaint division. Mr. Tom Jones. He won't sing you a song, but he will send you a couple of complaint forms. All you have to do is fill them out, mail them back. The government is interested in making the FHA 235 program work. It is interested in having subsidized homeowners happy with their opportunity to get ahead. In far west Dallas, this is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move.
It is a week when we try to highlight and broaden the general perspective of Mexican Americans and others in terms of who the Mexican is, where he came from, and where he's going.
These dancers do not look like my idea of a Mexican. What is the significance of that?
Well, precisely, we're trying to broaden the general community's perspective of who the Mexican is or who he was. Well, the Indians that you see dancing in the background represent a very highly civilized culture of our past, and represent some traditions that remain with us today.
Yeah, I've been well pleased with it up to this stage. We've worked awfully hard out here since Sunday night. We went 3 times today and 3 times Tuesday and twice the other 2 days. It's early in the season, and with the extreme heat we're having, it's been difficult. But I'm well pleased with the regulars who have come back from last year. We have 3 younger players in Ansley Truitt, Jim Creighton, and Kobe Dietrich, who have shown up real well. I think with the addition of Nedelecki to this ball club and get him in prime condition, at about 10 days from now we ought to be ready to get into exhibition season.
Well, Jerry, as you know, coming into this season with World Hockey and the National Hockey League, our quantity is pretty well unknown right at the present time, with the exception of our players of last year. But I'm anticipating with some of our top drafts and what we have left and Stockton University, I think we'll come out with a formidable club and a very competitive and interesting club this year, Jerry.
Do you think it will change any from last year?
Well, I hope not, Jerry. I just hope that some of these youngsters are of the talent and the capabilities of some of the players that we've lost.
The LeBlancs and the Bordelots are gone. Who do we have to take their place?
Well, I certainly hope that we have some of these fellows. One interesting personality I hope that we'll have in the club is a veteran by the name of Bill Orban, who was in our organization, was drafted away by Los Angeles and returned last year. I'm hoping that he is sent down here in Dallas to take the place of a LeBlanc or Bordelot, along with some of the players that we had last year and some of our new interesting drafts.
I think if they can bring our men home, the more the merrier. But I believe the government really should have something to do with bringing our men home along with the activists.
Why is that?
Well, I have very strong opinions about that, and I'd just rather not say if you don't mind.
What do you think about Fort Worth Cares? Has there been a big response in the Fort Worth area to this organization?
Yes, there has, and I have been very well pleased. Fort Worth Cares has, in the 2 short months that it has been in operation, they have shown all the POW MIA families in this area that they really care.